Hello everybody, my name is Alanna Kaivalya. I'm the founder of the Kaivalya Yoga Method and author of Myths of the Asanas, and I'm also a PhD candidate in mythology, and so mythology of the entire world totally fascinates me, particularly at this time of year when we're rolling into Halloween and fall and moving into the dark aspect of our cycles of the world and of the planet. And
my name is Grosso. I do nothing amazing like Alanna just said. I write. Actually, this idea kind of came to me. I've been writing a series of articles for elephantjournal.com, and I recently wrote one regarding our shadow self in relation to the holiday of Halloween, and thought it would be a neat idea to actually explore the film Halloween and Michael Myers, and as Alanna said, with this time of year coming around, delving into that.
So what's your favorite part about the movie?
Oh, Michael Myers.
Michael Myers.
Yes.
It's awesome. Chris and I actually watched the movie together just to review for this particular video that we knew we were going to do, and to really get ourselves prepared to provide you with all of the underlying ideas and mythology of the movie so that we can understand exactly how spiritual Halloween really is.
This is right. And as far as spiritual, I think it really delves more into our shadow selves. You know, I had mentioned, I was writing an article regarding that, and it's something that in the film Michael Myers represents perfectly. You know, he's an entity that does not talk. He does not run. He is just there. He's very methodical in the way he does what he does, which is basically kill people.
And he brings up fear in people, and of course fear is our biggest enemy on our own spiritual path, and fear, nothing more than fear, will stop us in our tracks. And Michael Myers represents the epitome of everything that we fear. He is almost nameless. In fact, Chris pointed out to me that in the credits he's referenced as the Shape. So he's nameless and formless. He doesn't have anything for us to relate to. And in fact, as the psychologist Dr. Loomis points out, that it's impossible for Michael Myers to actually relate to anyone at all. So he's completely unrelatable.
Right.
And he is just fear itself. And of course, everyone in the movie tries to run away from that. And what happens when they try to run away from the fear?
They die.
They die. Chris, do you want to explain exactly what the shadow self is?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's something that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, had begun teaching in his work. And the shadow self essentially is the part of ourselves which we deny. It's the, I guess, unsavory characteristics, the things that we would rather not acknowledge about ourselves. And by doing that, we essentially project that onto other people. So when we see something in someone else we don't like, that basically is a sign that that's something in ourselves that we're not willing to acknowledge or look at.
Something that we might run away from?
Maybe, yes. So the film is totally, it has a lot of that element to it. There's not only scenes where, people are just running away from Michael Myers terrified, but there are other scenes where you will just see his mask kind of creep out, just like a shadow self kind of creeps itself out and makes itself a little bit known but not known. And there was a particular scene that you had really hit on last night where Michael Myers puts a sheet over his head, and he puts on this woman's boyfriend's glasses who he had just killed. And he stands there and he kind of does a cat and mouse almost thing with her. He just toys with her. And I thought what you were saying was interesting about that, if you wanted to talk about that. Or what you were asking about, why do you think he...
Yeah, I was basically wondering, because I haven't seen the movie nearly as many times as my friend has, but I was wondering essentially, when he puts the ghost outfit on, he's dressing up like Halloween, and you're supposed to dress up as a different character, and it's almost like he's trying, even as the shadow or the fear itself, he's trying to put on a mask in that moment and have a moment of relatability, a moment where he gets to play a role as a boyfriend, as someone who interacts with this woman who is in bed expecting her boyfriend to come back. And he just can't do it. He doesn't bring himself to talk, he doesn't bring himself to interact, And it's a pretty quick trajectory from her being excited to see what she thinks is her boyfriend dressed up as a ghost, haha, it's Halloween, to suddenly being totally freaked out and calling him a weirdo because he just can't interact at all with her. And of course he proceeds then to kill her. But, there's this moment where, at least for me watching the movie, I was thinking, okay, there's some humanness. There's some humanness still in him somewhere that is trying to connect with another human being.
Right. And in the fourth one, which we didn't watch, not to get too off subject, but in the fourth installment, there is a scene where his niece starts to lift his mask up and you see a teardrop. So it does add the human element to that very dark, disturbing nature, which to me actually makes it a little scarier because there is part of his consciousness that recognizes what he's doing. He's not just completely shut off, like Dr. Loomis says in that speech about how he'd spent the first 8 years of his career trying to reach him and touch him in some way, and then he spent the subsequent 7 years, or it might be reversed, but the next 7 years trying to keep him locked up. Because he realized that whatever was behind those eyes was pure evil, according to Dr. Loomis. So it is very interesting to see how it touches on that human element, but also just the very dark side of that as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think in terms of relating the movie to our own personal life, because as a yogi, I read everything as being an internal experience. It's a mystical experience. We bring everything inside. So any representation of an external story or framework or context is really a way for us to understand our own internal workings and our own psyche. And so I see Michael Myers, as our, as you said, the shadow self, as everything we fear about ourselves, about our lives. And, ultimately, the only way to bring a shadow out is to face it, to encounter it in some way, to recognize it in some way, to look at it in some way, and almost to connect in some way to its humanness. To recognize it as not something other, as not something as purely different from us, because anytime we try to shove our skeletons back in the closet, they tend to multiply or get bigger or scarier. And I'm wondering, for you as an expert, obviously, in the Halloween films, is there any point at which someone in the films does try to connect and not be afraid?
That's essentially what Dr. Loomis's role is throughout the first. He dies in the sixth installment. But
spoiler alert.
With the exception of part 3 that has nothing to do with Halloween, like I was telling you last night. Great movie, but it doesn't follow the storyline. But Dr. Loomis, in each one, he tries to reach Michael, especially in the 4th and 5th installments. He really tries to just reach him, and not with force. So at the end of the first one, he just shoots him 6 times, and he falls off the balcony and disappears.
And of course, he doesn't die.
No. But yeah, you do see that Dr. Loomis does try to reach him. For whatever reason, the storyline takes that role. And I think that was important, though, because, like I said, there was also that part in, it might have even been part 5, not part 4, but however, where the niece does try to connect with him and you see the tear. And, and so she's also trying to connect with him because she finds out it's her uncle. And for whatever reason, she believes, she can reach him. So again, kind of metaphor, for our interconnectedness, our being able to relate to one another's humanity, though it's not really possible.
But even to relate to the humanity of our own shadow.
Right.
When we're afraid of something, or when something really stops us in our tracks, that's a moment to recognize within ourselves and connect within ourselves with the fear, with the darkness, with the Michael Myers, because otherwise it will stop us in our tracks and metaphorically put us out and make us unconscious.
Yeah, and like I was telling you yesterday, I know in my personal life, the only recurring nightmare I've had actually consists of Michael Myers.
I love that.
And I do too. It's actually, I enjoy it because it's my own personal Halloween movie. Very scary at the time, but it happens periodically through my life, and I recognize that when it does happen, it is usually during times when there's some heavy stuff going on in my life, whatever it might be, but and I didn't really recognize that it was symbolic of, my shadow self kind of rearing its ugly head. But no, I do kind of recognize that, and it's funny that over the past few years I have maybe only had one dream with Michael Myers in it, but especially in my teenage years through my 20s, I had a lot of recurring nightmares with him, and he never got me in them, but he'd get very close, and but it was always just coincidentally during times I was going through my own shit. So.
I don't think that's a coincidence at all.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. But it seems to me that the shadow self is the unconscious. It's the stuff that we're not willing to look at.
Right.
And as soon as we meet that and bring that into a conscious plane, then it no longer becomes so scary.
Right.
If we're looking at the movie critically and even looking at it from a conscious perspective, and if you turn the music off, actually, it's not scary at all. There's just a lot of walking around the neighborhood and
Good point.
Kids being teenagers kind of thing.
Right.
You realize that Michael Myers is really just a person with a mask and a kitchen knife, which is powerful. It's a powerful tool, but he's a person with a mask with a kitchen knife, and that isn't so scary. So, I think making the unconscious conscious it seems to be what happens during the fall and during Halloween, and everybody gets the opportunity at Halloween to put on a mask, and it's like the license to actually make our masks present and conscious when we always wear masks all the time in an unconscious way every time we're with somebody. So I think that in light of the fact that we're moving toward the dark time of the year and that we get to wear masks right now, that this is a great time to take a look consciously at whatever it is hiding behind the mask.
Absolutely.
Michael Myers or otherwise.
That's right.
And to carve pumpkins.
And of course. And you can do so without having to be a serial killer as well.
Right. Yeah. That's such a plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or is it?
Oh. Right. There's my kitchen's right over there. We could get some knives.
Maybe
props.
We will.
A couple final notes. Just make sure that if you're ever in a horror film, you never take a shower, turn off the lights, or let your cell phone die.
Don't have sex either.
Don't have sex.
Never say you'll be right back. Ever.
Worst thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Always go in pairs somewhere. Never go into the dark house.
Yeah.
Just a few tips.
And never put down your weapon. Ever. Ever.
Right.
If you have a weapon, hold on to it.
Keep it close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Awesome, Chris.
Cool.
Thanks for chatting about Halloween.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.